The student revolt in Beijing in 1989 started with students wanting to honor a late reformist party leader at Tiananmen Square. The Communist Party soon claimed that the students were planning a conspiracy against the state. The students responded with demonstrations against political abuse of power and corruption in the party. Towards the end of the protests, writer and scholar Liu Xiaobo and 3 comrades started a hunger strike and were involved in formulating a political manifesto where they proclaimed, "We have no enemies." They stressed that the process of democratization in China should take place without any form of violence. When the military were about to advance on the square, Liu convinced most of the students to leave peacefully. But many stayed on the square, and those who lost their lives were the ones attempting to stop the military's advance. Liu Xiaobo was taken into custody. He served 20 months in prison, accused of having committed counter-revolutionary propaganda and incitement to disturb public order. The massacre at Tiananmen remains an issue that Chinese authorities refuse to discuss. Over the past 3 decades, economic growth in China has lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. The economic success, however, is creating new problems for China's rulers. With prosperity, people want something more: control over their own lives. Nevertheless, people must be careful not to cross the line of what can be spoken, written, or published. Otherwise, they can face stigmatization, harassment, house arrest, or worse. With 400 million Chinese online, it's hard for the rest of the world to imagine the internet as anything other than a safe haven for opinions. But China proves that even the internet can be controlled. The government blocks unwanted sites and requires that internet companies police what users post. In 2008, Liu co-authored another manifesto. Charter 08 called for a political reform in China. It proposed, among other things, an end to one-party rule and the introduction of a division of powers. When it was released, 303 people had signed. Many of these were known dissidents and intellectuals, senior government officials and grassroots leaders. On December 8, 2008, Liu Xiaobo was arrested again. After sitting in detention for a year without charge or trial, he was sentenced to 11 years imprisonment for inciting subversion of state power. This is the most severe sentence given to a Chinese social critic for more than a decade. During his trial, Liu wrote a statement which rapidly spread on the internet, both in China and around the world. It states that the mentality of enmity can poison a nation's spirit, and that Liu hopes that he will be the last person to be imprisoned for speaking his mind. China's future is up for grabs. A peaceful, mature China can be a force for stability in the world. But the government could use nationalism as a tool to appease people at home. Fortunately, it has many idealistic citizens who are pushing to make the country a better place.
At this stage in the ceremony, when we normally hand over the medal and the diploma, I place them in the empty chair held by Liu Xiaobo.